Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is October 13th City Council, and have you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Zito.
Mayor Borelli.
Here.
Councilmember Clarici.
Here.
Vice Mayor Patton is noted as absent. Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Okay, announcements and presentations to the public. I have an announcement. Mrs. Zito just shared with me that we now have our applications for city council appointment. As many of you know, Councilmember Patton married, and she's going to be out of the city limits, so she's no longer eligible to be on the council. So we are going to go through a process of having a new city council person. The applications are available on, you go to the 4th floor of City Hall to Mrs. Zito's office, and also she shared that they are going to be on the website. So,
There's a few copies in the back.
I'm sorry?
A few copies in the back.
There's a few copies.
There's a few copies in the back as well.
Okay.
Yes.
There's copy. Okay, yeah, we've all got. Okay. All right. Any other announcements or presentations at this time? Okay, we'll move on. Closed session report. City Attorney Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the council did not take reportable action in closed session.
Okay. Adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ceremonial matters, we have none scheduled. This next is public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the City Council under specified circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on any items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the City Council under specified circumstances. Please give any written material presented at the meeting to the city clerk for public record. Do we have any written communications?
There are 2 items listed in the agenda, written communications. No real recommendation on those. One of those is related to, from Sue Rodman, related to the Johnson Controls Energy and Water Efficiency Study that we are working on. That item will be coming back to you in the future, so I would recommend that we just use that as input when that item comes before you for consideration. Okay. The other item is from Dave Machado, and no action recommended from staff at this time on that unless council desires to comment or provide information to us.
Thank you. Okay, oral communications. Anyone from the public wish to come up and speak on any item?
Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Don Vanderkar. For 36 years, my wife and I have enjoyed living in Placerville and contributing to efforts to enhance our wonderful community. Among other things, I'm a volunteer with the nomadic shelter program of local churches. The lives of homeless people matter. I wish to make the council aware of our efforts to improve our community. Businesses and residents do not want people who are considered unsavory in their vicinity. I do not blame them. Businesses and residents do not want human waste or garbage nearby. I do not blame them. People without houses are living lives of fear and chaos. They are suffering on our streets. They are dying prematurely as a result of lack of shelter and access to services. The solution to both concerns is to provide shelter and get needy people off the streets and allow them a meaningful future. This would improve community health, reduce the risk of wildfire, lower the cost of policing. Taking care of ill human beings brings reduced costs to emergency room medical care. Studies have shown over and over that it's cheaper to provide shelter and housing than it is to leave homeless people on the streets. As you're aware, Supervisor Veer Camp has formed a group of concerned citizens who are studying how to address homelessness in the future in the county. I'm pleased to be part of that effort. It is vitally important. We're all glad to see it moving forward. The shelter and programs envisioned by this group are probably a year or even 2 years from being operational. In the meantime, the Nomadic Shelter Consortium of Churches is working to provide shelter for people without homes during the inclement and cold winter months. The rest of the time, there is no shelter. In seeking to follow the example of Christ, the churches struggle each year to provide sleeping places on the floors of churches where street people can be sheltered from the cold and wet and experience human kindness. Transporting, staffing, and feeding at widely separated facilities each night is no small task, and it's expensive. Currently, there are several days each week without an available church. Also, there is no single church or facility with programs that will allow continuous operation of the church's regular programs and the shelter program as well. The consortium plans a permanent religious facility and an ongoing church program. This facility can operate for more than just the winter months. The benefits of an ongoing shelter are huge. Having a safe place to be and leave belongings allows people to stay clean, get to appointments and jobs and support groups. Being with people who care helps to get proper medications and overcome addictions. We want you to know of our plans. We ask for your support and individual prayers as we work to improve our community and show love and care for our brothers and sisters who are suffering on the street. The lives of homeless people matter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Vandekar. Anyone else care to come forward and speak?
I'm Pastor Mary Maga. I'm among the clergy people that work with the homeless and the mentally ill, the addicted and the incarcerated people of our community, and it's a privilege to do so. I'm a big fan of this town. I love it so much. I'm a big fan of the businesses downtown. I love those so much. Thanks to law enforcement, I've been able to get some folks that have gotten arrested and served time in county jail back on the straight and narrow path of being good citizens in this community, and I'm grateful to be in partnership with law enforcement in that. But we have a problem, and that is that with a widely dispersed population of homeless people with no place for them to gather, the relationships that need to be formed in order for people to pull their lives back together, it's not happening. And our good and actually very gifted mental health service officials can't access those people either, nor can medical, nor can dental, nor can 12-step programs, or any of the other people who are out in this community that would like to be about the work of transforming human lives. And so I too am interested in helping Don Vandekar and others to establish a Christian-based, a religious-based place for people to gather during the day. This is so that we can form relationships, because you see, programs only go so far. It's relationships that really can transform lives. My husband died 12 years ago today, as a matter of fact, right now, as a matter of fact. And I know that in the wake of that loss, my life really fell apart. And if it hadn't been for my relationships, for the people who stood by me when I acted like a fool, for people who talked to me about ways that I could improve my life when I didn't want to hear those things, I just wanted to escape. People who stood by me and showed me a way through, I wouldn't have made it to the place that I am now in my life. And when I look at the number of people we have on the streets who are mentally ill, who are chronically addicted to alcohol and drugs, who have aged out of the foster care system, who have served their time in jail and end up dumped on our streets and do not have anybody to turn to except for the drug dealers, except for the criminals. I want to give them another option. I want to have them have a place that they can walk in and where people will accept them right where they are and help lead them to somewhere fresh and new. What are the odds of a person having a transformed life who's been living on the streets? Extremely thin, extremely. But those who are transformed are at the heart of the work that we're doing now, because they show people the way to build a better life. Truth of the matter is, this place that Don's talking about will also be a hospice place, because we have a lot of people out there who die. We lost 9 people this past year. And we want to serve this community. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for funding. We're asking for a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Mrs. Mayor, council members, my name is Dolly Wager, and I'm a citizen, a proud citizen of the city of Placerville. I am here tonight to represent myself and several of my neighbors. The neighbor directly across the street couldn't be here and asked me to speak for her as well. I came here tonight to commend and thank the city. Now I'll tell you why. We had a main break on Cedar Ravine and Roland. We were out of water. Now, my first thought was, okay, they'll get this fixed because we're near the hospital. Unbeknownst to me, we're not connected to the same main line. But the city was incredible in that situation. They were on site quickly. They communicated with us. They didn't go to door to door once. They went to door 2 or 3 times, the last time about 10 o'clock at night. They were sympathetic. They understood that we were being put out, and they were apologetic. They weren't defensive. They explained what was going on, explained it was too big to the city, but that the city had gotten on top of it and was contracting out with a good company, a local company, I'm proud to say. City Works, the city, I have to commend all of you. It was a job well done. Started about 11 o'clock in the morning. The next day, they were there pumping water into the hydrant so that we could have water. They were pumping water in so that we could flush our toilets, wash our hands, do the necessities. They said we could have done wash. I wasn't going to try it. But they were out there all night, almost. I don't know how late they were out there the first night. The second night, I can tell you because I knew someone that was on the crew. They thought they were done at 11:30. They cooked it all up. Something else broke. They went back. They did not leave till 3:30 in the morning. And as a citizen who could have been without water for almost 48 hours, you guys did a tremendous job. I'm going to end it by saying it made me really realize one more thing. We need to get this stuff fixed, and we need the city tax, the sales tax. It proved to me and anyone in our neighborhood, if they didn't know then why, it explained it to us. So thank you for doing such an incredible job.
Thank you, Dolly. Anyone else here to come forward?
Good evening, Mayor Borelli and members of the council. I just wanted to remind everybody that next Monday night, the supervisors are holding special workshops. I just thought of this just now, and I hope I have the right details. But our supervisor for District 3, Brian Veerkamp, is holding one next Monday from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, and I believe it's in the Board of Supervisors chamber. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew and that a lot of people show up.
And could you tell what it's about? Why?
I can't remember, but I was thinking it was about getting people's opinions on
Issues that they're facing in the county.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Kathy.
Anytime there's a town hall meeting that an elected official has, we should all show up because we could learn a lot. And
Well, and I agree. We talk about these things and we, mumble and grumble, and now he's giving everybody a chance to come forward with their complaints or to-dos. I mean,
each supervisor is doing one.
Exactly.
And so,
They're trying to put a plan together.
Yes.
So. Thank you,
Thanks.
Kathy. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, I'll bring it back to council. We will certainly take under advisement the things that we've heard and go forth.
Mayor,
Yes.
excuse me, I apologize. I had a call from somebody that asked me to make a comment under oral communications if I could.
Oh,
It
sure.
was from Michael Drobish, and it was simply regarding The fire that happened to the Stadium Club up on Broadway and his concerns that when the heavy rains come, it's going to wash debris into the creek possibly, and just asking what we're doing about it. So we'll take that under advisement and look into it. I think we already are, actually, our code
I was going to
enforcement
say, I
people, so-
think I had a conversation with Rebecca. I think things are moving along, so,
Right, so I just want to make that comment.
Okay,
for him. I
thank
told
you.
him I'd let you know.
thank you. Okay, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. Any requests?
I would like to have 8.4 pulled, please.
Okay. Any others? Okay, I have a motion for acceptance with the exception
I
of...
move that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 8.4.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call vote, please. I'm sorry?
Comment.
Oh. Would anyone from the audience care to come forward and with a request that we look at any particular item that's on the consent calendar that you would like to comment on? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to council. Now, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Hang on. Okay, we will talk about 8.4. And I think this has Mr. Rivas's name, but I never know whether it's Rebecca or Pierre that's going to talk about it. So, whomever. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Borelli and members of the council. Just briefly, a little bit of history on this job. This has been a long time coming. In about 2004, the city was successful in decommissioning and bypassing the city's existing water treatment facility located up on Party Way. As part of that effort, pipelines downstream of that facility were identified in need of replacement. And in 2011, the city did enter into a cost share agreement with El Dorado County Water Agency to develop plans and contract documents to address and identify the identified deteriorated pipelines in that area. Plans were developed to 90% final design by early of 2012 with a construction estimate at that time of about $1.9 million. Subsequently, the city applied for and successfully received funding for the water projects through the Consumnes, American, Bear, and Yuba Rivers Planning Group, also as the one we affectionately call CABI. You've heard that, I'm sure, a time or two. We were successful in 2013. The funding received from that was through the Proposition 84, Round 1 of funding, and was in the amount of $950,000 in grant funds. In addition, in 2014, the city, through CABI, applied for the round 2 of the Proposition 84 funding and was again successful, this time obtaining an additional $743,351 in grant funding. Both funding rounds have a local match component, and with that, the total amount of project funding has now reached up to $1.7 million for construction funding. So we're pretty close to what we were aiming for. At the regularly scheduled City Council meeting on February 24th of 2015, City Council approved a design services agreement with Dominicelli and Associates to complete the design for the segments of water lines as identified and part of the Round 1 of funding. Council also accepted the local project sponsor agreement with the Sierra Fund. The Sierra Fund is acting as the grant administrator for the Round 1 of funding. With notification that the city was successful in receiving Round 2, we also we requested an amendment from Dominicelli, being our consultant under contract already, to complete the design for the remaining water lines that are tied to that project scope. They did provide a proposal that was reviewed by staff, and it was in the amount of $34,790, and it was felt to be an acceptable amount for the scope that we've requested, and the proposed amendment does fall within the proposed project budget as detailed in the staff report. Additionally, in order to receive the round 2 of funding, we have to enter into another local project sponsor agreement. On the round 2 of funding, the project grant administrator now is Nevada Irrigation District. So round 1 was the Sierra Fund, and round 2 is Nevada Irrigation District. So now we're moving forward with requesting to enter into that agreement. The staff report also provides tables that outline both rounds of funding for both rounds 1 and 2, and it also identifies the grant monies associated with each, local match requirements. Prior to award of the construction contract, it is estimated that we will need to seek an additional local match amount to be appropriate. However, to move forward at this time, we do have sufficient amount to complete design and get the project out to bid. And once we receive hard bid numbers, then we can figure out how much we actually need to request. So that part of it will be tabled for another night. But as such, staff is recommending the following. Approving a consulting services agreement, amendment number 1, with Dominicelli and Associates in the amount of $34,790 for design engineering services for the Pardee Way, Big Cut Road, Sacramento Street area water line project. And this particular segment addresses the water line replacement on Chamberlain Street and Sacramento Street, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. We are also requesting approval of the local project sponsor agreement with Nevada Irrigation District for the round 2 of funding, establishing the terms and conditions for the receipt of the grant funding, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. And additionally, approving a $743,351 budget appropriation from the State Water Conservation Grant for said project. I apologize that we didn't get to all the attachments included in your original staff reports, but you may have noticed that there is, and I believe there's some copies in the back as well. The staff report kind of details which lines, we call each segment of what pipe contained within the particular road. We identified lines. This exhibit identifies which lines are covered under round 1 and which ones are covered under round 2 through the staff report. We also included the local project sponsor agreements and the master agreement that the local project sponsor has with the state, as well as the amendment requests through Dominicelli. So with that concludes staff's presentation on this item, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a real quick one. I'll tell you, this thing was complicated. I read it, I think, 5 times trying to figure it all out. But anyway, I think I'm getting it now. But what I didn't understand, under discussion, on the first paragraph, it said, at this time, line F is the only remaining portion of the project that is still unfunded with an estimated construction value of $180,000. Is
Yep.
that what you're going to go for next?
We will, yes. So you may recall I described that the original construction estimate was for $1.9 million.
Yes.
And then the amount of funding that we've reached so far is right around 1.7. So the difference is the $180,000 plus a little bit of design money to finish that up. And then that would bring us to the full project funding of 1.9. So we're almost there. We're just shy of that line F to complete the entire project.
So does it look like we're going to get it? And if we're not, to me, that it's something that maybe we should try to come up with some money. As long as this whole thing is ongoing.
Right.
Okay.
We are seeking subsequent funding. It's not currently available. There is not a round currently available right now. So that may be something that we want to consider adding in. At this time, though, we didn't have the money to do it, and so we're keep clipping along with the ones we did have. Plus, I have looked at that line with the designers, and there might be a way that we can do a little bit of a simpler bypass, and so that's a cost-saving measure that we're looking at too.
Okay. Cleve, you look like
Well, I just want to mention, you understand that this isn't holding up the project. The project, these first 2 phases will move forward without that. If we came up with the money quickly, we could still probably add it into the current one, which would be great. But recognize we still have that $192,000 match we need to come up with. So the 180 would be on
so that
top
would
of
be in
that.
addition to the 190?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So-
close to 400,000 extra.
Okay.
So my assumption is that next year, as we get closer to construction, we'll probably be coming back with a recommendation. I'm looking at Susan Rodman from Measure H for that 192,000 to do that match, to do the first 2 phases, these phases.
Correct.
Okay, any more questions, comments?
I actually had a question.
Okay.
I had the question answered previously, before the meeting started, but I think some folks might want to know how Nevada Irrigation District got involved with this project.
Since Cleve just explained it all to me,
To us.
I'm going to let him
Yeah, but
answer that.
somebody from that direction could explain how NID
That'd be me.
gets
I'm
involved
in.
in this kind of thing. The public may be interested.
No, and it is, because, that was my question. How did Nevada Irrigation District get involved with this?
They're being great neighbors. No, it's quite an arduous task to prepare grant applications. It doesn't really matter what kind of funding you're going for. You're looking at all nights, so when you do the process of applying for a grant, you basically put your life on hold for about a month and a half solid. But the group that did the first round of funding, it took them out. They said, no more, we're tired, we don't want to do it anymore, who's in? And all of us, the ones that were actually submitting projects, we all sat at a table together. There's, you'll notice in the agreements, there's about 5 or 6 projects that are funded in each of these groups. We kind of get, picked up as little clusters of funding. So in the second round of the cluster of funding, we all looked around at a table and we said, okay, well, it should be one of us because we're getting funded. And then Nevada Irrigation very graciously said, we'll do it. We've got the staff. We're willing to take it on, and we'll do it. And they've done an excellent job.
So we
very
could have
thorough.
said, we'll do it. I mean, it could have
We
been
could
any
have.
one of these.
Yeah, at the time when we submitted.
And is this the CABI group?
Yes.
Okay, that's because I think that's important that everybody knows about
Yes,
that.
CABI has been monumentally instrumental in getting this taken care of.
Okay.
They've been very cooperative, very positive. They are the submittees of the grant.
Right.
And then Nevada Irrigation becomes the grant administrator. CABI gets together with NID or the Sierra Fund, and they pull together resources and create the proposal to the state for the funding.
Okay.
And then at that point, the grant administrator is assigned, and away we go. So,
Got it?
did that answer? Okay.
Got it?
Just a quick comment, Madam Mayor. I just want to echo the comments of my fellow council members and commend our staff on being just so proactive in securing, needed resources for our city and having this project, be moving forward. So well done. We really appreciate all your efforts.
Okay. At this time, I'll ask if anyone in the audience would like to come forward and comment on this.
Susan Rodman, resident of Placerville and ratepayer and member of the Measure H committee. And I'd like to make real note that $425,000 of current Measure H fund money is in this match. And so I'd like the public to know that their Measure H money is being used, as came up in the community chats, of let's use this money to leverage so that we can get some of these projects done, and we have done that. But that represents almost a year of Measure H money, too. So it's not a perfect solution, but it certainly has allowed us. So thank you to our taxpayers for voting for Measure H, because that is really what's allowing us to go forward on these projects like this, because without a match, you're dead in the water. You don't even get to apply unless you can prove that you have matching funds. So I just wanted Measure H to get the credit for recommending that we go ahead and allocate this money out of Measure H funds for the matching grant, and the City Council agreed with that, and I think it's an extremely good use of our Measure H funds.
Thank you, Susan. We do appreciate our Measure H committee and all that you do. Anyone else care to come forward and comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for a vote.
I'll move the staff recommendation on item 8.4.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay. Ordinances, none scheduled. Public hearings, none scheduled. Discussion action items, none scheduled. Okay, now we're going to get you. Council reports from other agency meetings. Transit.
We canceled our October meeting, so there was no meeting.
No report. Okay. Transportation Commission.
John, why don't you? No meeting again.
Okay. LAFCO Council Member Patton isn't here. SACOG. John, do you have a report on SACOG?
We had a meeting. It was pretty brief. These summer meetings sometimes don't go on for very long. The one important thing, and we don't want to count any chickens. That's a different issue. But we don't want to count any chickens before they're hatched. We had been on a list for some funding for potentially for some active transportation funding, and there's basically two lists. On the one list, we did not make the cut. We were just slightly below the cut line, but there's a lot of hope now that those suites of projects have been moved into another list with another group of people. One was a statewide thing, I think, and the other one is one that SACOG has more control over. It's a local, regional thing. We are holding our breaths and keeping our fingers crossed that, in fact, that money will come through, and we might have even gotten some news on that. Go ahead.
Actually, you're correct. Thanks, John.
Yes.
There were 2 rounds of ATP application processes. They go essentially concurrently. There's the state round, and then there is the SACOG round. And SACOG round obviously is geared towards funding local jurisdictions where they aren't picked up in the state round of funding.
Right.
It's true. We did submit for both rounds of funding. And the state, we didn't score enough to make the cut, but with that, I want there to be some understanding that the last cycle of the ATP through the state funded around $180 million, and this one was $120 million. That's how much they had available funding. So $60 million less, and about double the applications.
Right.
So it was a pretty fierce competition. Now, the state round.
Could I interrupt
Yes.
you?
Yes, ma'am.
What was it for? I mean, would you explain?
ATP, what it's for?
Where would it?
Active transportation program funding is geared towards the enhancement and encouragement of active lifestyles being bicycle and pedestrian movement. It's basically finding alternate forms of transportation with those 2 in mind.
Right.
And we submitted on 2 projects. The first project that we submitted on, and unfortunately we weren't successful for either round of it, was for Placerville Drive. You guys may notice from about Ray Lawyer to about Cold Springs, it's pretty rough if you're a pedestrian or bicyclist.
Very
So that was, we had
Even
come
if
up
you're
with.
driving a car?
Yes. Yes, particularly over that bridge. But the other project that we did apply for as well was the Upper Broadway Bike Lanes project. We did have a public meeting for the Upper Broadway Bike Lanes project a couple weeks ago.
Great public meeting.
Thanks. And we're moving forward very progressively, and aggressively for that matter, through the environmental process and final design, and getting our ducks in a row towards actually doing the final design bid documents. But we go through the environmental process, we start with the public meetings, and we do our due diligence that way. Well, during all of this effort, we have a decent idea per square foot what kind of money we would need for construction. You can do a pretty rough estimate and come within about 10%. So we did the rough estimate, and we found that we were shy some money. So that's when we said, okay, it's time for us to find money. So we went out and we sought this ATP grant program, which perfectly fits the needs of that project. So we submitted Upper Broadway. We didn't make the state cut. We did make the SACOG round. We were ranked 8th, and the state round picked up the ranked number 1 and number 3 out of SACOG. So that pulled them out of the pool. And SACOG had about 9 point, John, you may remember 9.4, something like that, and some change. Well, when we pulled out number 1 and number 3, that boosted us up within the fundable range. Because 1 through 8 was totaling about $12 million. Well, the state round picked up about $5.6 million out of that. So now it brought us up, and it actually even brought somebody in below us too, that allowed us to be funded. But out of 49 applications through the SACOG round with only about $9.4 million available, we were successful in getting $1.79 million for the project.
Congratulations.
So,
Yeah,
so thank you.
that's great.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
Yes, no, that's okay. Those are,
No,
that's
but
a good answer.
I think it's important that the folks
Yeah.
know that what's they're
And
talking about.
I'll give you the 1-minute tour of the ATP. The ATP is actually a lot of different funds they used to have separately, and then at some point they kind of put them all together and they called it this active transportation program. And this money is dedicated to bicycles, pedestrians, alternative forms of transportation. It cannot be used for anything else but those things. So if someone says we should take that money and use it to pay potholes, that would be a great idea, but we wouldn't be able to do that with that money anyway. So we are putting it to its highest and best use for which it is intended. And that's it. Tomorrow, Thursday, I have a transportation committee meeting at SACOG, so I'll be able to talk about that next time.
Thank you. Anybody?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. We actually had a board meeting for the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Program, which we do
good.
once a year. So I do have a report on that
I am
this
so
time.
glad.
I know, right? Everyone's been waiting for it. I know. First of all, I'd like to thank Chief Heller and Shirley Patty from our police department and Commander Nida. Our police department took over the administration of the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Program for the County of El Dorado this last year. And they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job to administer the program. The City of Lake Tahoe currently administered it for the last couple of years. And so I really want to thank our police staff for taking that on. And when the City of Placerville took it over, we found we have been behind on our audit processes with this program. And the current audit, the last audit that was done was 2006. And the county was in the process of doing the next audit, which was 2007, 2009, Chief? Yeah. And it had never been finalized. So chairman of the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Program, which is Supervisor Michalako, has been working with the county to get that finalized. But there's some challenges with the auditor's department and that. So the City of Placerville, we've decided to go forward. We commissioned an audit going forward from the time the city took it over till now. And we'll look at that, we'll finalize that, see if there's any irregularity, as Chairman Michalako continues to work with the county, and then we'll go forward. But we wanted to make sure that the city is, that we've done everything correctly moving forward, and so we're on this and looking at rectifying that once and for all. But the Abandoned Vehicle Program is working very well, and so that's where we are. Do you have anything to add, Chief?
I think you covered it all.
All right, thank you. So stay
Thank you.
tuned until next year. But I'll let you know when we have the audit done. So.
Okay, at this time, Wendy and I had the opportunity to attend the annual conference and expo, the League of Cities, and it was held in San Jose, and we went down on a Wednesday, September 30th, and I'm just going to give a real quick little explanation about it, and then Wendy has prepared a great PowerPoint program of the things that we learned and that we want to call to the council's attention and the public. And so real quick, after we checked in on Wednesday, and they had a few, this whole conference was made up of sessions and an expo. And the sessions were pertain to different items that cities would be interested in knowing about. And so in the first day, on the Wednesday, we had a League of Cities, our area meeting, and then we had a keynote address. And Wendy and I both were kind of thinking, this doesn't sound like maybe something, but we did go because we just, well, I'm going to tell you, it was just probably the best keynote address we've ever heard. And I don't know how many of you know, but we have a state librarian.
Who knew?
Who knew? And he is just absolutely wonderful. And I'm just going to read this. It said, the keynote address, if you build it, they will come. The huge civic payoff of 21st century libraries. Throughout its history, cities have been the incubators of civic, cultural, educational, and economic innovation of California. City officials don't need to look any further than their local public library for a hotbed of innovation and a major catalyst for building a stronger city. Join former political reporter and now California State Librarian Greg Lucas as he takes you on a tour of the ways in which community libraries are engaging citizens, transforming the way we learn and grow, helping expand local economies, and providing vibrant and energetic urban places that attract entrepreneurs, families, potential employees, and tomorrow's leaders. And as I say, it was just one of the most rousing presentations. He kept us laughing the entire time. It was just wonderful, but he also got the message across. And then we had a session on Thursday. Different sessions that we could attend. We also had a keynote speaker on that day, and this was it was called A Workplace in Transition, and I'm going to read this because it kind of tells you what goes on. Only yesterday, he talked about the different generations and how we are all having to address these generations and how it counts. So it says, only yesterday, Generation X entered the workplace for managers. And managers were perplexed with their behavior. Today, Generation Xers are the managers and are struggling to accommodate and retain the millennial generation, aka Gen Y. Millennials are the single largest generation in the workplace. Though fluent with technological communications, and parentheses, they don't prefer it, they mandate it. Their ability to empathize in person has been stymied due to so much handheld technology. Still very relevant are the boomers, who are busier than they had ever thought they'd be at this point in their life and careers. Learn the ins and outs of a workplace in transition. Get tips on working with and for each of the different generations, and enjoy a humorous approach to mixing them all together. And it was wonderful too. And again, kept us laughing, but we really had, he brought the point home. So, and then besides the PowerPoint that Wendy's going to present and tell you some of the things that we learned through these sessions, as I mentioned, this expo, I don't know how many booths were there, but the presentation was just almost overwhelming. We had to keep going back because we couldn't get through, up and down the rows and attend them all. But it was really great that we went to this the day after we had our community chat. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the emphasis was on asking our folks, what do you want us to do? How do you want us to go about finding financing for improving our infrastructure, et cetera? And so I think we hit every booth and every session that had anything to do with financing, and they all know about Placerville and our needs. So, with that, and then I went to one that Wendy didn't attend, and it was it's called Future of Economic Engines, Complete Park Systems. And it says parks, open spaces, biking and walking trails, and recreation programming are among the top 5 amenities potential home buyers and renters seek when they are looking for a place to settle their families. Even businesses include well-maintained and accessible parks on their must-have list for potential communities in which to relocate. Learn about the resources HEAL Cities campaign has put together to assist cities to guide development of park infrastructure, services, and financing, just as a general plan sets out the blueprint for the city's land use, real estate, and economic development. So I attended that one, thinking about Goldbug Park, that maybe they could give us some, ideas on ways that we could make it bigger and better. Another thing that was really addressed, and that's the dog park, and I know that's coming up at a future time, and they gave a lot of hints for what not to do. They've gone through, the trials and tribulations, so I'll bring that up when we have the community chat on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
All right. Fun to attend the conference with you. And little disclaimer here, I am not going to read a PowerPoint presentation. Can we say hallelujah? But I do want to keep in mind another disclaimer. These are just strictly notes that I took. I think one of the responsibilities that if we are using taxpayer dollars to have continued education, it falls on us to bring back ideas and our information that we learned to you. So, you can benefit from our experience. And especially, I want to share it with my fellow council members, because this is the only way that we can share it with each other, is to chat about it like this, so we all have the same information. So these are just notes. So. Very briefly, the city of Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill have a very vibrant program called Community Service Days, where once a year the entire community gets together to benefit the community. This year they're going to have 50 projects in one day. What I liked about this model is that it is a volunteer, community-based model. It does not involve staff time. Now their public works crew does partner with the community that day to provide some services, but it does not take staff time to produce this. It is also it revolves around different community groups in the area. For example, a school can say, we'd like to partner and be a part of Community Service Days. So parents, and they can choose a project and sponsor a project and bring it forward. Let's say it's redoing the playground, and so parents that are interested in that school can take part. Historical groups, people from Goldbug Park, whatever you're interested in, you can have as a wraparound service on this day. The cities of Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill have a very vibrant online program that makes this possible, where volunteers can figure out what's going on that day, sign up for it, and track that. They are willing to share it at any time. So just an idea to tuck in the back of our head. It's a way to, first of all, improve our community that doesn't cost our taxpayers anything. It's a way for our community to come together and for the greater good, rather than operating in silos in secret. And go to the next slide, if you will. This is just a brief flyer, and they had their community day this last weekend, and it's worth going on their website to find it. It's a very interesting idea. Very briefly, Patty and I went to every single session on roads just to continue our knowledge base as we attack this subject once and for all this next year, hopefully. Very briefly, the California state highway system has gone from a 68 to a 66 in 6 years. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal. What I found was very interesting, that a pavement condition index of 66 is basically the point of no return, where the pavement will deteriorate rapidly and cost, just goes up exponentially as you try to maintain and repair it. And the PCA of Placerville is at 58? 48. Yeah, we're way under that. We're way under that. And we have dropped 2 points in the last 6 years, despite the fact that there has been lots and lots of federal one-time monies poured into our state system. And even with that, hundreds of millions of dollars of road projects, we have not been able to maintain what we have. And that money is no more. And I think that's something that's very interesting for us to realize. This was sobering. We are 6th in the nation's top 10 worst pavement conditions. And that is not something to be celebrated. We are also 45th in the United States for the worst road conditions in the nation. 45th out of all the states.
This is California.
California is 45th, not Placerville. Well, and we're behind the state pavement condition index. So we're behind that.
It's even worse.
Really sobering. All right, next one, Dave. Thank you. There's some more notes for the counselor, whoever wants to read it. What was interesting is that the idea of a user charge is coming to the top of solutions at state and federal levels. Number one concern is privacy issues for the individual, and that is also of top priority and concern as they are looking at it on a state and federal level. So I was pleased to see that that is one of the things that they will be addressing as this comes forward. The challenge with a user-based model is that right now people don't really realize what it costs them to drive. You fill your gas tank, but you don't think too much of it. Right now it's costing you about $0.015 to drive a mile. I had no idea. The user-based model that will be coming forward will also cost you about $0.015. And as the gas tax has gone down, it's really not going to cost you any more, but you're just going to notice it more. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. Also sobering that in 11 years, the prediction is we will have a fully automated vehicles. 11 years, and they showed models of that. It was fascinating. What that also means is that our the needs of our road network is going to be changing because more cars can be in more confined spaces and move efficiently. So right now we're talking about expanding to reduce congestion. That's actually going to be, the need for expanded roadways is actually going to be getting less as cars are able to move more efficiently on our network. So just a little food for thought. All right, next one. All right, EIFDs mainly enhanced infrastructure financing districts. This is a new tool that was alluded to by our city manager and staff at our neighborhood chat. It is a new tool coming forward in January of 2016. It is similar to the old redevelopment programs, but also very, very different. One of the main reasons why it differs is that redevelopment districts needed blight in order to utilize the tool, and it also had the power of eminent domain, Enhanced infrastructure financing districts do not have any additional powers of eminent domain, so that fear is off the table. Blight has nothing to do with it. This tool can be used to improve your roads and bridges, civic infrastructure, parking garages, parks and open space, affordable housing, and mixed-use development, economic development projects. Basically, it's done through a property tax increment financing. The challenge for Placerville going forward will be, though, that as we saw in our neighborhood chat, Placerville receives about 4% of our property tax, comes back to the city of Placerville. In order for this model to work, you need about an 18% return on your property tax. So in order for this tool or financing model to work in our city, we would need to partner with other agencies like the county, the fire district, and they would have to basically agree to give up part of their property tax percentage that goes to them in order to partner with us. You have to define an area. It can be a large area. Areas do not have to be contiguous. So there are some interesting challenges. There are also perhaps some benefits going forward. It's a brand new tool. So next one, Dave. You can bond. You don't have to bond. If you set up an EIFD, you can declare that you're going to set up a district and set your boundaries. And if no bonding goes on, you will receive the benefit of the tax increment as time goes on in that district. Chances are not much is going to happen, though, because you won't have an influx of monies to really make the improvements that make money in that district that gives you the revenue for the tax increment financing. But once you do decide to bond, of course, that requires a 55% voter approval. And once you do bond, then the tax increment revenue goes on for 45 years and then it's done. So just some other notes for if an EIFD is to be successful, it will always be a part of the tool with other financial tools as well. So it's just part of it's the hammer in the toolbox, if you will, but you also need a wrench and a screwdriver and all kinds of other things. So, all right, next one, Dave. This was probably the biggest thing that I got out of the conference is looking at retail and economic development. What are shoppers looking for today? What are the trends going forward? We have to have eyes wide open going forward because we live and die by sales tax. And so we need to know what will work for us and where we're going as a nation. Fascinating that indoor malls will be gone in 20 years. The good news is that the trend is towards street retail. That's where it's happening, with an interesting mix of independent, local, national retailers that are blended in a very interesting way. The biggest thing I got out of the economic development talks, and once again, I went to all of those too, is that experience is going to be number one in not only attracting appropriate retail to your community, keeping your existing businesses viable and thriving, and attracting the consumer base you need to keep your city going. And so create the experience. The good news is we have the experience in downtown Placerville. It's looking at how can we magnify that, enhance that, protect it. And then how can we create that experience on Broadway and Placerville Drive, which is where our economic opportunities are going to be. And right now, the experience folks are having in both those aspects of our city are not necessarily pleasant ones. And so that's going to be an absolute key to Placerville's future going forward. Thank you. The other thing I learned is that the cities that are making retail work well are cities that have a very bold council and staff and community working together to make it happen. Economic development is not going to walk in our doors. It won't. We have to be bold, we have to be proactive, we have to have a vision, and when we do that, we can create something really sustainable that will move us into the future. And it can be done in ways that don't harm our community character but enhance it. Absolutely. Because retailers are also looking for it. They are looking for identities, companies, or cities that know who they are. Consumers are looking for cities that know who they are, that can provide a unique experience, not everywhere USA, but someplace special USA. And we can do that, but we need to be boldly advocating for it. And I think it needs to be an absolute priority for us going forward. Amenities that create experience. And, perhaps council that we need to look at having a strategy, and I know our Economic Advisory Committee is definitely working on that, that perhaps we want to look at formally designating our districts. Main Street, of course, historic, and look at preserving that once and for all, creating that historic district. And then we need to decide what Broadway and Placerville Drive how we're going to designate them. And think about those two areas of our city as experiences, the whole street as an experience, as a district, not just individual properties. All right, thank you, Dave. Bottom line, we have to be bold and creative in retail and economic development. All right? The next one, these are remarks from the keynote speaker that Patty already talked about that. You can move to the next one, Dave. Thank you. And I also shared our mayor's enthusiasm that we need to understand what the next generation is thinking, what they want, if we want to work with them and create a city that's going to be appealing to them, because they're our future as well. So some notes for the council and community on that. And contacts at the expo that we made. All right, Dave? Very briefly, this company has potential that we are looking into. It's called the Retail Coach. It's an actual retail recruitment firm. It's Buxton on steroids, basically. And Buxton was a software company that we hoped would allow us to get a better feel for what our retail is leaking down the hill, what we could attract, but it wasn't a personalized. This is perhaps a company that comes to Placerville that works with our staff for a concentrated period of time, that looks at site specifics within our city, helps us really develop a full economic strategy for Placerville, and markets our city, and also makes the contacts and works with us to really make economic development work. So it's something we may look at. Did you want to? Yes.
Can I make just
Absolutely.
a quick comment? And Wendy doesn't know about this either, but I've made arrangements for them to make a presentation to our Economic Advisory Committee this Friday at noon. So anyone who would like to, they won't be here in person. They're going to do it over the internet. But anyone that would like to see that presentation, it will be this Friday at noon.
You
down.
totally rock. That's awesome.
To come down here, Cleve?
Yes, here.
Okay.
And I just have to tell you, I mean, this was an idea that we got from the League of California Cities. I've shared it with staff, and thank you so much for following through on that. We have an amazing staff, so look forward to maybe exploring this. It might not work, but it's worth looking into.
Right.
Also brought back some a vendor that does online permit software, and I know Pierre's looked into several other companies that a chance for, you know, gosh, I don't know, I'm a homeowner in town. What kind of permits do I need? You could go online, easily see what you need, fill it out online, pay online. Don't have to see the beautiful smiling faces at City Hall. It could be something for our community. I don't know. All right, next. This was a developer, and a developer is not a four-letter word, but that I talked to that does market rate townhouses, which we have a lot of Section 8 and lower income housing. What we don't have is the medium range market rate housing that is attractive to the millennials or young professionals, that where you have, you know, beautiful townhouses in perhaps upper Broadway or upper Main Street, where you build your consumer base into your city districts. It's something that maybe we ought to consider. I want to give the council one of the things that I learned on this is there's a big push on mixed use. And they had very interesting mixed-use possibilities where they do townhouses above and live-work environments, which then fosters mom-and-pop stores and the artist trade and all of that. They were beautiful. They did caution, though, that a developer will sometimes come in and do market rate housing with the retail component. Promise you the retail component, but that's not their focus.
Yeah.
Because
they said
residential
if we did
sells.
to make them concentrate on the retail.
Right.
And then.
Retail should
then
always
go-
drive residential,
Exactly.
which I wouldn't have thought. So that was a good cautionary tale. All right, next. iBank, I just brought this back for staff. It is a bank that finances infrastructure. They say a low-cost financing option. Dave will be the judge of that. But they loan between $50,000 and $25 million with terms up to 30 years. So maybe another tool in our toolbox as we look at getting the money we need for road, water, sewer projects going forth. And that's it. So I greatly appreciated the opportunity to go, learned a lot, and look forward to exploring some of these tools.
One thing, Wendy, I'm going to, I didn't get this to Wendy in time, but I visited a booth, and he saw my badge and where I was from, and he said, "Oh, I've been trying to get in touch with your department and that handles this," but he has, it's called Precision Concrete Cutting, and it's a low-cost way of maybe helping to fix our sidewalks. And I said, this is so appropriate, because we just had a meeting last night with one of our men with his arm in a cast that fell on one of our streets. And so anyway, he and I have been playing phone tag, and this is another person that I would like to have come up and have our staff interview. And what they do is they come in and they focus on different areas and determine what needs to be done in the way of fixing broken sidewalks, and it's not so that you don't have to go in and take a whole piece out and replace it. They grind it down, and it's kind of like in a ramp way that they do it. But anyway, it sounded good, so I'm going to talk to him, and hopefully we'll quit playing phone tag, and I'll send the on to you. So, all right, thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And any questions from? Yes. Any questions for Wendy or me? Or okay. Anyone from the audience care to come forward with any questions or comment on anything that we brought up? Okay. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council. Now, where do I place here? Where were we?
We're very close to it.
I know we're close to the end. Okay, here's my page. Okay, city manager and, oh no, I'm sorry, requests for future agenda items. Any requests?
I do have one.
Okay.
Sorry. It's not necessarily a future agenda item, but it's something that I'd like us to be aware of and look at in the future. When I was at our board meeting at the police station for the Abandoned Vehicles Abatement Program, we were in the conference room at the police center station, and it came to my attention that, and I know you know it, we have challenges with our IT system there. I know Darren is working on it, but I just wanted to let the council know, I mean, the internet didn't work. It was spotty. It took forever to get linked up. It quit again. Cell phone coverage is incredibly hard. And this is our police department. I mean, I was amazed at how long it took you to connect. And that's a real challenge. So as we go forward, and I know we're working on it, and I thank everyone for doing that, but you know, if we need to build money into the budget this next year for IT or something, that's certainly, I know, it was pretty amazing. So thank you for the concentrated effort on correcting that.
Okay. City manager and staff reports.
I don't think I don't have anything further other than reminder about our joint meeting with the Recreation and Park Commission next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, right, Steve? You'll be getting an agenda for that meeting. The other thing, and I don't know, maybe Councilmember Thomas was going to mention this, the community cleanup is this Saturday. Oh, you have it? Okay. Sorry.
No, that's
Didn't mean to
okay.
steal your thunder.
That's all
I
right.
just want to make sure we announce that. That's this Saturday at the Park and Ride again.
From 8 to 1:30.
Right.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, upcoming items. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regularly scheduled meeting on October 27th include Mallard Lane Street Frontage Improvement Agreements, Johnson Controls Agreement, Rubberized Asphalt Grant, and the introduction of 2 new police officers. Okay, nothing to add to that. At this time then, I will adjourn the meeting, and thank you all very much for coming. Okay, did you make me a note?